anxious parent is already anxious.
Yes. Now you're 35 and you don't really know how you feel about anything.
Almost spewing out of my mouth. The idiot.
It's meant a huge amount to me.
Oh.
I always get a bit emotional, don't I?
I
always get a bit emotional on the podcast, don't I?
Oh, that's my actual baby.
You are such a whizzy dopamine person. Like, I can't even...
Welcome to our podcast, Help My Child's Anxious, with me, Vanessa Feltz, and my child therapist daughter, Saskia Joss. Now, this isn't just any old podcast, as you can see from the cake. That is the clue.
It's a clue to the fact that we've been doing this podcast for an entire year. This is our year celebration. We are very, very pleased to still be here, still talking about anxiety, although we wish obviously everyone was feeling a bit better. We're hoping that we've been helping people speed the process along, but we are so proud to be here after a whole year with you all still here listening with us and new families coming the whole time. And we are just very pleased to be part of the
We certainly are.
plan.
And also, we would really like to say that the first year has been extraordinary for us because we've been joined by listeners and viewers all over the world, including, I know it's 47 countries.
We were
we
on
did
the
count
top 100 in 47 countries. I won't read all 47, but I will read some.
Yeah.
We've been on the top 100 list in Argentina, Australia, Austria, Belgium, Brazil, Bulgaria, Canada, China, Hong Kong, Greece, Germany, Finland, Japan, Russia, South Africa, Spain, Switzerland, Taiwan. Obviously, our best friends in the Solomon Islands.
Yeah, the Solomon
Islands. We were the number one podcast for parents in the
out.
Solomon Islands for at least 6 months this year, so we were very pleased.
Yes.
Vietnam, United States, everywhere, and really.
And what it shows is obviously that there is a global pandemic of child anxiety, no question about that at all. And therefore, one of the things we've really learned is how much you seem to appreciate this podcast. And so we're so pleased to carry on bringing it to you. And thank you very much indeed for your support over the year. It means a great deal to us.
What do you think that a year of talking about anxiety has taught you?
I think it's taught me that anxiety in a child is entirely inspired by an actual fear for their personal survival. So you can't talk them out of it, you can't bribe them out of it, you can't punish them out of it, because they feel that if they do the thing, like go to the party where a balloon might pop, or go and stay with their grandparents where they're not quite sure where the fridge is and they don't know how they're going to be fed, or go to the school that they think has got lions prowling around in the forest because somebody told them, if they do that thing, they could die, they could be killed. And that is the root cause of all anxiety, even though it might seem like a big stretch to link the two things, and therefore it has to be dismantled, deconstructed. You have to try to get to the core of it, but you definitely cannot chivvy, bully, or indeed, cuddle a child out of it. You've got to deal with it.
That's right. I think the big thing is we've noticed that more and more families are able to understand that part of their child's feelings and giving them the empathy that they need to open up about what the problem was in the first place, and then work out solutions as a team to fix them or to manage it or to help them get through the next part or remind them why that thing is actually safe, has made such a big difference with families all over the world. So we're very, very pleased.
Yeah.
It's been a year. Here's to another year with you.
Another year with you. And I tell you another thing I've learned. It's been absolutely lovely and quite a gift of total unexpected joy to be working with you.
Yeah.
Because Saskia qualified originally as a teacher.
Yes.
And I'm on the telly and and everything. I never thought I was going to work professionally with Saskia.
No, me
Then
neither.
she qualified as a child therapist. I still didn't think I was going to be
No.
working with her. Then she gave a speech which was such a hit that she was asked to write the book,
That's
which
correct.
is called Here You See It, Help My Child's Anxiety is Giving Me Anxiety. And then, because of the book, she was asked to do some broadcasting. That's how it happened.
Yeah, complete surprise. For the
Complete surprise to me as well. And so it's ended up with us doing this together, and it's been an absolute unexpected bit of bliss in my life. I've loved it.
I was saying to somebody about the podcast when they said to me, like, how is it working with your mum? Because people do ask me that a lot. And the answer is it's an absolute pleasure, exactly like you. So I love
thank
it.
you.
I think that's very, very rare for adult children to get time to explain what they do to their parents. You might say, how's your work going? Oh, yeah, it's fine. Been a bit busy, it's whatever. But you wouldn't get this time where we now talk about my job, or the thing that I find most interesting, for 40 minutes a week.
Yeah.
Nobody has that with their parent. This like extreme investment in your passion. It's an extreme investment in your business, and it's meant a huge amount to me.
Oh.
I always get a bit emotional, don't I?
She
I
gets
always
quite
get a bit emotional on the
emotional.
podcast, don't I?
Oh, that's my actual baby.
It's meant a huge amount to me. We were very close. No one could ever say that we weren't already close. We were close. This isn't that it's been a revolutionary transformation from our non-close to close relationship.
No.
That's not true. We've always been close, but there is something pretty incredible at 37 years old to see your parent invest in you in such a big way.
Oh.
And it means a lot. Very,
Oh.
very pleased to be doing this with you. And I
Okay, just
didn't.
get up to give her a quick kiss.
Oh,
Say
you're
really
big.
love
No.
her.
Oh,
Mwah.
I didn't expect to be doing this. Neither did you. And
No.
it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm so pleased to be doing this, and it means a huge amount to me that you would support me in something I think is so important.
It means a great amount to me to support you in something that I think is so important. All right, now enough about that. Or shall we
Enough
keep
of-
talking about us for the whole?
What
No,
should
let's
we
not.
do? Who knows?
Okay, so I
Right.
saw, and
Yes,
it was
let me
in the
just to get rid of
Sun,
this little tear. I've got
the
just one
Sun
tear.
newspaper, which isn't necessarily usually a source for this podcast.
No.
Not that we don't love it and everything else, but we don't usually use the Sun newspaper necessarily as a source for this podcast. But I saw this and sent it to Saskia immediately, and the headline is "Anxious Parents Are Making Their Children Anxious." And the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, has really weighed in on this, saying anxious parents, basically helicopter parents hovering all over their children, are making them more anxious and are bringing up a generation unable to cope with the sort of demands of real life. And I wondered
So
what you thought of that.
obviously, I don't think that's exactly right. I don't think we can firstly say that all children are doing anything. I think that's not correct. But what we do know is that children are very anxious all over the country, and that makes them much more likely to find things difficult. Being anxious and feeling overwhelmed and listening out for loud noises and being your own security guard makes it much harder to learn and much easier to find difficulty. Is that because parents are overparenting them? Not necessarily. The idea is that we know that there is a link between overparenting and social anxiety in adults, which was an interesting one. There was a study that said that 2 years ago, that the children that go to university and are highly socially anxious are usually anxious because they've had overparenting. And the reason that is because it makes children feel like they're not independent or capable by themselves. It makes them feel like they can't do things without their parents.
You just used the phrase overparent.
Yeah.
What does overparenting mean? Because obviously every parent that's parenting doesn't think, hang on, have I done enough parenting? Am I doing too much parenting? Am I overparenting, underparenting? You're just parenting, getting through it somehow.
Yeah, I think in this case it means, for example, you've got a 12-year-old and you're putting their shoes on for them and they haven't got any good reason for it. They haven't got disability. They haven't got a sensory processing problem. You're doing sort of what they might say is too much. In Montessori, Maria Montessori said you should never do something for a child they can do for themselves.
Right.
Does that mean that should be a blanket rule all the time, that if my 7-year-old can walk up the stairs but they're too tired and I can carry them, I should never carry them? No, I should. I should consider the needs of my child and change my plans and think, can they do it right now, rather than can they always do it? But I think the idea is that we have got parents who are, for example, doing their children's homework for them so that they're at a top standard.
I'm definitely guilty of doing that. I definitely did that. I remember writing Allegra's whole project on time clocks and sundials.
I don't think she would need you to do her homework now.
No,
She's
well, I
extremely
couldn't
bright
do
and
it now,
capable.
but,
There's
you
no
know.
way. But this feeling that parents want their children to not only do well for themselves, but also for their own personal praise, and that people would notice that their child is the best child and that their child is doing, makes parents overparent, makes them do things that actually their children don't need them to do for them. And I think that's what Bridget Phillips is saying. She's saying there are parents who are taking too much of the role that children need to do themselves. Children have to go to school, they have to be nice to their siblings, they have to help a little bit around the house, they have to get themselves dressed, they have to do those things, and unless there's obviously a good reason, in which case we have to help children for longer. But the idea is once our children can do things, we should mostly let them do them for themselves. And that means we know that our child can lean over to a friend at a party and say, how was your week? Are you going on holiday? We should let them, rather than saying, say to your friend, are you going on holiday? Say to your friend, how's your day going? We should hope our children can learn the skills from us over time and then take over.
And what about when we say to our children, say thank you for having me? What about that kind of thing? Are we meant to do that, or are we meant to hope they'll do it themselves?
So I think we're hoping that there'll be a point where they can do it without being reminded. And the number one way we get children to say thank you and please is to say it to them. We say it to our children, please can you go upstairs, thanks for brushing your teeth, even things that we shouldn't really thank them for. The more we thank our children, the more likely they're going to say thank you to other people.
But the thing that resonated with me and worried me about the whole piece was this idea that anxious parents have anxious children.
Yeah.
Because my observations in life, and you can certainly correct me, you are the professional on this and I'm not, but my observations are that parents don't necessarily have identikit children at all. So just as you can have a very sporty parent and a child that isn't interested in sport at all and is completely sportily ungifted,
Yeah,
you can have an anxious, nervous, worried parent and a very confident little kid that's, strides off everywhere and
that's
has a
true.
great time.
That's
And
true.
and likewise, a very well-adjusted, very jolly kind of parent who just can't believe that they've ended up with this very anxious child.
Yes.
So often you get children in your own image. You like reading and you like chocolate. They're very happy curling up next to you, reading and eating chocolate. You think, great, this is my kid, just like me. I was like this at this age, and it's a very easy affinity that you've got. But just as likely, I think, probably, I don't know, you'll tell me whether it is or isn't, is that you get a kid that can't stand reading, in fact, never wants to look at a book at all, and is out there kicking the football against the wall all the
So,
time.
yes, we do see obviously all different personalities in a family. People often feel very surprised that even though they've come out of the same factory, the children are not the same.
Exactly.
And that's true. But it is obviously true that if we sort of bake our children in a soup of anxiety, they're going to come out of the oven a bit anxious. I mean, it will be, if you've got a highly anxious parent or a parent with health anxiety who's constantly washing their children's hands, those children will obviously be more anxious about getting ill. We're not trying to say that you are the only way that your children end up the way they are. Children are partly nature, partly nurture. The things that are inside them will always be inside them. But there's also what we call epigenetics, which is that people's genetics, genes and personality change over time based on their context. So we're all these things. We're a mixture of nature and nurture and society and change. But I think what we're really saying is there's no point to make parents feel bad about it anyway. I think if you realize that you're an actually anxious parent, you might think this could be a good time for me to have some therapy because I feel like my children will notice that I'm anxious about going to the park and seeing dogs, or that I'm very worried about health anxiety. I don't want my children to be very anxious about this. I think it might be a good time for me to work on it. And not necessarily with intensive therapy, but short form CBT therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, which is very practical, doesn't require you to go on a deep, dark journey of yourself in the same way that sort of long-term therapy might. I think the whole idea is we're really trying to empower our children in so many lovely ways to do things for themselves and feel capable, to feel like they're the masters of things that they do, and to feel like the things that they like and are interested in are good enough for us and for them. So being anxious about that makes children feel more worried about those things, which makes them less likely to sort of bed in this feeling of self-esteem, control, capability, and a feeling that they're allowed to just relax and be happy. If you're constantly panicking, walk around the house like this, and what's it going to be like, and how will we get to the holiday? You can see that you take up the air, which is then available for people to breathe, to then relax down and enjoy themselves. So why are we not letting ourselves relax enough to let our children relax? And so I think that's the big question. If you think, actually, that sounds like me, I am really panicky, I am always like ticking off a list and rushing my children out the door, it's not, no one should feel bad about that. There's a reason that you've got to this point where you are moving fast, keeping yourself going. Maybe you're the only person that does the organization in your house. Maybe you're the only person who'll remember things if you get there. But I think the idea is that I would say, how do you know you're enjoying it? Yes, the kitchen's very clean, but are you enjoying it? How do we get you and your family to a place where you can relax together, enjoy yourselves, and feel like even though there are things you might worry about, that they don't have to take up all the oxygen that everybody needs to breathe calmly and be together.
Right.
So,
Because the thing that's concerning me about this is that an anxious parent
yeah,
is already anxious.
yes,
And very often, an anxious parent is anxious about their anxious child. That's why we're doing it.
that's
I
right.
mean, you may be anxious about lots of other things too. You may be anxious about your relationship. You
Yeah,
may be anxious about your
money.
job, money, always money, security, the future, the planet, health. There are loads of
So
things
many good
that are
reasons to be
virtually,
anxious these
yeah,
days.
every parent's anxious
Yeah,
about. But if you're anxious about life itself, you're anxious about your child, and then you read something saying anxious parents
make
make
anxious
anxious
children.
children, then you're anxious. And how can you not be, because you're a decent person, that your anxieties are making your child even more anxious?
That's
And
right.
and and so I just worry that this kind of will cause parents, especially people listening to this
Exactly.
podcast, to think, oh my God, it's my fault. I'm anxious, and now I'm even more anxious,
Yeah,
and it's my fault. And
it's the opposite of what I'm saying. You found yourself as in a certain way for a good reason. The reason we have coping strategies like washing hands a lot or like organizing the house in a certain way is because it was useful at some point. The reason we're not silly people. We don't make coping strategies because they don't work. They used to work at the time when we bedded them in. It was useful to be quiet when you were sad because your parents weren't going to listen when you were a child, for example. The reason we do the things we do is because they worked at some point. Coping strategies are chosen by us because when we picked them, they were working.
Mm.
And often they stop working. For example, not eating because your parent wants you to be slimmer, for example, doesn't work because eventually you're going to get ill. So at the time when it was working, when you're in optimum weight and you got lots of praise and whatever, it's working. But when it becomes something that doesn't work and is dangerous for you, it's not working. And there are lots of things that we will have chosen to do as young children, or when we went through a breakup in our teenage years, or when we went to a new school and there was rules about socializing. We will have taken on a whole lot of stuff that actually now we're 30, 40, 50, 60 no longer works. And so I say to myself, is this working? It doesn't make me feel less anxious. It doesn't help my children feel less anxious. It was a great idea when I picked it as a strategy to help me feel calm and in control, but is it working now? I still feel anxious about it, so it probably isn't working. What else could I put in place? Have I got additional support in my family? Can I ask my partner or a friend if they could help me with this thing so that I can try and relax about it? The idea is that we will never have made a decision that was meant to be harmful about ourselves or our children. When we picked our coping strategies, being particularly organised for holidays so we don't forget something, for example, that's not a silly strategy. It's a good strategy, and it's meant to make you feel less anxious. So the idea is that we have to be fair to ourselves, that anything we picked that was designed to help us was helpful at one point, and it might not be now. And this is the time to think, do I still need to do that? Is it working? What does it do to my family if I stay the same with something that I picked when I was 12?
Give an example of something you might have been doing when you were 12 that made you feel less anxious or helped you.
Yeah, a really good one is people pleasing,
Right.
for example. So let's say you were in a social group at school where there was a sort of queen bee or a king bee, and you had to sort of be quiet and do what they said. And it worked really well because you didn't stand out and you didn't get bullied. That was a really great thing at the time. It was really great, really worked well. But now you're 35 and you don't really know how you feel about anything. So you can't be empowered to pick your own choices and do the thing you love because you genuinely are not sure, because for all these years you've been swallowing in the idea that you're meant to have an opinion because it's easier to get on with people. It doesn't work anymore. You get to a point where you feel sort of a little bit empty and a little bit unhappy and think, well, what do I actually like? And that's because for years and years you've been using a very good strategy that works in certain social contexts. Is it great if you've got a bossy boss to just be a people pleaser? Very useful. Is it great in all other situations? It isn't. And also there gets to a point when you think, well, why don't I ever get to do what I want to do? And it isn't because you're not a good person or you weren't trying hard. It's because that's exactly what you were trying to do. Be a good person and try hard. But it isn't a very good solution for every context. And so you can see that there's a point where you think, how do I make my life feel more like I want it to? And one might be being able to eat in a less restricted way. It might be being able to say what you want when you want to do it. You might be reminding yourself that actually you're safe always and you don't have to keep doing things to make yourself feel safe. We have to think, what am I doing that helps me? And what am I doing that makes things harder for me? And I don't have to carry on doing them. And the other one is also that families will find is some people will have a voice in their head that's extremely negative to them. Why would they care about you? You're so lazy, get off the sofa, stop eating that. And that voice almost definitely would have come from your parenting.
I mean, I once fell over going at 3:20 in the morning to do my early breakfast show on Radio 2, having to park in the municipal car park across the thing, rushing across the road. And I was rushing up the steps and tripped, I think possibly on some oil, I don't know, that was on the step, and, really gashed my knee. And I heard myself say out loud, "You idiot."
Awful.
You idiot,
You
to
hadn't done anything
myself,
wrong.
like furiously to myself.
Yeah.
Idiot. And it was an accident. I was just trying to get to work quickly and I slipped like anyone could. I'm not sure whether it was on oil or just I was clumsy. I don't know.
Doesn't really matter. It was a mistake.
But my own voice, aloud, it wasn't even in my head, came to like almost spewing out of my mouth. You idiot. As I was kind of trying to, staunch
And also
the
when you're an
blood.
adult and you fall over, it's such a shock.
Looking in my bag for a
Horrible.
Kleenex, trying to obviously not to get to work late because, and idiot. And if you, God forbid, or your sister or the grandchildren had ever fallen over,
There's
I would
no way that you
never say
respond like
that to you.
No.
Never
So
say that to you.
You can see that there are things that people will have bedded in that are not working.
Exactly.
A really
I'm only saying that because
a
it's
really
an example
horrible
of it.
inside voice in your head that makes you feel rubbish, tells you to be worried about things you shouldn't be worried about. In transactional analysis, they get you to, in Gestalt therapy, they actually get you to record your inner voice onto a tape.
God,
And
mine would be
listen to it.
horrible. I'd
Yours
hate
would be
to hear
awful to you. It would be so unfair. It would be so nasty and so unfair. And so the opposite of reflective of what kind of person you are now and what you do and how much you've achieved. It'll be absolutely so unfair to even hear it, but that's what they do. They get you to listen to your own inner voice, record it onto a tape and listen to it back with your therapist. And the therapist will say, how much of this is actually true? How much of this will you let yourself listen to for the next 25, 35, 45 years? How many times can you tell yourself that you look ugly or you're stupid or that nobody cares? And when will you let yourself be released from this? And how do we start changing the inner voice to allow you to feel like you're good enough? And I think that it's the mixture of those two things. It's partly, how do I make sure that my coping strategies are actually helpful? So it isn't 3 glasses of wine in the evening, which is probably too much wine, for example, but it is a 1 glass of wine and a lovely walk around the block, which is probably okay. I'm not telling anyone to drink or not drink. It's up to everyone else. But thinking, do my coping strategies actually help me? Is this what I really want? Have I been able to say the things I need to get myself sorted out? As well as, am I actually undermining my own self-confidence by listening to this horrible voice in my head? You know, it's the opposite of shame that I'm trying to give to parents who are anxious. I'm trying to give them a real feeling of grace. None of this is your fault. You didn't choose to be anxious, exactly like your children who are anxious. They're certainly not choosing it. Let's come at it with empathy and grace and a feeling of practical nature, which is like, how do we make this feel better for you? We can talk about how we help children get into school. But if you're so anxious to even sit down and put your hands on the table, it's too germy. How do we help you? How do we help you to give yourself space to be able to get a bit better and manage life more easily so you're not panicking all the time? You're also hypervigilant. Two hypervigilant people will only set each other off more. Give everyone the reason, that the feeling that they've got to keep fighting against some kind of fear.
And I would always say, not that I'm the professional, as we all know, but I would always say, with your anxiety, with your child's anxiety, with everything that's making things difficult for you and your family, a very small but excellent thing to look forward to, that you can pinpoint,
Very
that
good.
you can put on a chart, that you can say, that is the day we're going to, whatever it is, whether it's go swimming, whether it's eat the ice cream, or make a knickerbocker glory in our own home, and you know, and lie on a cushion and watch the film we loved best when we were 5, and eat the knickerbocker glory with a long spoon that we're going to get, you know, from Amazon or wherever it is,
Yeah.
you know, and that's our ice cream day.
Yes.
Only 2 days till ice cream day.
That's right.
You know, only 2 days till the day when we are actually going to take your bike and go to the nearest, you know, park and have a ride around the thing, or whatever it is that you could look forward to. Only 2 days till that great book arrives that I loved when I was your age, and I can't tell you how much fun it is. That's always a good thing, because when everything's closing in around you, you need a tiny, at least, little window of something optimistic to look forward to. That's what I think, anyway.
Yeah, we have to take a break, but I'm going to tell you why that is extremely true and why our brains want us to do that as well in a second.
Okay. Just before the break, I said, I think it's always good if you can have something very small to look forward to, because if you can, there's just this window, there's this kind of glimpse of kind of hopefulness in the darkness and the anxiety. And Saskia said the brain works really well
So
with that.
as usual, Feltz has clapped onto something that's absolutely true in neuroscience. So I don't know whether you know, but my mum is extremely dopamine forward. She's a person with a huge amount of dopamine.
No one's
She
ever
keeps us-
called me that. I don't
You
know
are.
what that means. What does
So
dopamine forward even
She's
mean?
absolutely full of dopamine, which is our success chemical. You get it from ticking things off lists. You get it from achieving your goals. You get it from
Am I
being
full
good.
of that?
Oh, absolutely. You are such a whizzy dopamine person. Like, I can't even
But
tell
what do you mean? I still don't know what
So-
you even mean.
You are constantly ticking things off your to-do list.
Am I?
Yes. You do more than most people every day. You're doing 1,000 things a day, going to 1,000 places.
And does that give me dopamine?
Yes, so every
Right.
time you complete a task, you get dopamine. So if you do well in your spelling test, which luckily you don't have to do anymore.
Except I
or
won the BBC spelling trophy. I
you
won the
did,
whole
Star
thing.
Spell, you were the full winner.
With a 17-letter word.
Exactly.
So yeah, I wish I was doing a spelling
If you're
test.
doing a
I do
spelling
really
test,
well.
you'd be even better. But our brains are designed to reward us for doing good things. We get dopamine for achieving goals. We get endorphins from doing exercise, for example. Our brains are set up to help us do more things that we enjoy. And there's a really interesting part of the brain. It's right in the middle. It's called the seeking circuit.
Yeah.
And the seeking circuit is the part of the brain that's also, interestingly, like anxiety, wired for our survival. So when we had rural communities living around lakes, if the lake dried up, so they didn't have water for agriculture or to drink, the seeking circuit didn't say, just stay here, we like it here. It would remind people there was more to seek, there was more to get to continue the process of living and finding new, do go chasing waterfalls, do go and find some more water for your farming. And the idea is that the seeking circuit now reminds us to do adventurous, interesting things. And when we have something on our list that's like tapped in or organized, the brain gives us dopamine in little bits. So when you've got this ice cream day penciled in, every time you talk about, what flavor ice cream we're going to have, when are we going to get those spoons from Amazon, like you said, your brain will give you a small amount of dopamine, and then you get a big payoff off with dopamine for waiting for this end of the
Right,
day.
so it's a good
It's
thing.
a great thing. And I would recommend that families consider the idea that even if the summer is meant to be wide open, so we're not having a daily schedule, we're not doing 1,000 activities every day, we're having a relaxing summer where there's time to play, time to have a water fight in the garden and time to do whatever, that you still give your children this feeling of structure. Children love structure. They love knowing when things will happen and what's coming up. It makes them feel calm and relaxed. Do you need to have every minute scheduled? No. And if you are planning to schedule every minute, I would recommend that you don't. I want to try and make the summer the opposite of school, that we're not rushing. We're not going, get your socks on, get your socks on. It's the summer. Okay, so if you can hear yourself in the next few weeks shouting, get your socks on, get your socks on, remind yourself and remind your children it's the summer. If we have to rush because we're going somewhere important like the doctor, let's do it. Then say to your children, we're going to rush today because we're going to the doctor, but the rest of the summer, let everyone have a relax. But give this feeling of structure. So counting down days to the day that you're going to visit with grandma in Bournemouth, definitely count down the days. If you've got something good booked in where you are going somewhere lovely, you're going to a children's class in the park, you're going on a lovely train somewhere on a nice day out, and but tell your children when. Have a calendar in the kitchen with just these little pinpointed moments so that you can feel like there is this sort of bouncy energy that gets you through the summer.
I'm huge on that.
Yeah, I love a bit
I'm
bouncy
absolutely
energy.
huge on
You're
that.
the master of bouncy
I'm
energy.
very big on, but I'm
Take it
very,
from
very big
Feltzy.
on knowing what's coming up and looking forward to it.
Well, you can
I
see
really,
why.
because
It really,
otherwise,
really
otherwise
works.
it all happens when you're a child. You don't even know it's happening, and
That's
suddenly
right.
it's over. You didn't get a chance to anticipate it.
You didn't get a
You didn't
chance to
quite
enjoy it in
realize
the
what was
moment.
exactly going on when it was happening. You didn't really realize what was going on,
Yeah.
and then it's over. And I don't like that. And
Yes.
also, I'm really big on talking about the thing afterwards.
That's also
And saying, wasn't it great when? Who knew that grandma was going to blah, blah? Gosh, what about that big bouncy ball that came and hit that fellow on the head? God, it was terrible.
That's
a
right.
thing.
That's
so
right.
that you've got something in the annals, so that you've got some
That's right.
anecdotes, so that your family have got a fund of stories, so that you can pass something on to the next generation or whatever it is. So that when people say, what kind of a person are you? You think, oh my God, I'm the kind of person whose family goes and has a picnic and then your uncle gets stung on the bottom by a wasp. That's and and mum found some in her handbag, some old lipstick, dabbed it on his bottom, and and that seemed to calm the sting down. Or we found a dock leaf or something. But you've got to have something. And I just really don't like, it's just an instinct, but I don't like things fading away and
So
never
quickly.
being mentioned
That's
again.
right. And also nowadays
conjure
it costs
back
something
up
like
a bit.
£100 to take your child to a children's activity.
Exactly.
If you haven't been looking forward to it by talking about it, then you haven't been noticing it while you're there.
Yeah.
And you don't talk about it afterwards.
What's the
What have you
point?
spent the money on?
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. It's going to be an expensive summer for lots
Yeah.
of families. We're all
Yeah.
going to be saving up to do these special things. Let's make it worth it.
Yes.
Let's make it worth it by talking about them in advance, having it on the fridge, looking forward to it, saying, so pleased we're here, we're finally here.
We've been waiting till we get there after all this
time. And then also, exactly like you've said, be the kind of family who give each other a PowerPoint presentation of all the photos of your trip to Legoland.
Exactly.
Be that family, because that's how we get these things to last and make them worth the money and make it worth the time and the effort. Your child will almost definitely spill their ice cream on the floor.
Yes.
They will, that you've spent all the money on. They will almost do whatever to make it worth it, to make these moments that we've saved up for and taken time off work for and all this stuff worth it. The build up, the enjoyment on the day, and then looking back at it is the number one thing you can do.
It doesn't even have to be an expensive thing
I
that's
don't
saved
agree.
up for all
I
summer.
totally agree.
I once had a story with one of my grandbabies about that I was at the Alexandra Palace. We were all there, Alexandra Palace, waiting to go on the very small boating lake, which is, very nice, but hardly a big event of the century. And some fellow, there are many Yiddish words for this, but like in Yiddish, you say this schmerl, this total schmendrick, which means, not the brightest, just came to try and get through the door of the cafeteria holding 2 coffees. And that's the whole story. Nothing happened. And I said to the grandbabies at the time, what does he think he's going to do? Open the door with his nose? Is that what he's going to do? He's going to open well, he's standing at the door with 2 coffees, just like, what is he going to do? Is he think he's going to open it with his toe? Is he going to put them on the ground and someone's going to knock them out? What is this fellow doing with the 2 coffees trying to get through? What kind of a fellow approaches a door in a public place with 2 coffees, one in each hand? What do you think? What's going on in his head?
Yeah.
What kind of a guy is he? Is he the kind of guy whose mum would always come running up even though he's about 64 and open the door for him? Is he a king that lives in a palace that has servants to open the door for him? What is he going to? He's going to spill the coffee. The point is, it was an absolute nothing.
Yes.
Nothing. But it became something.
Yes.
And something is better than nothing in my
And I
view.
think lots of parents are very good at noticing like a bird and saying, look, a bird. Or they're very good at saying, look, a train. Or you've got a child that likes my son used to like this highway maintenance vehicles. So
Yes.
highway maintenance, highway maintenance. You know, we're very good at noticing things our children like, but actually making other things, mundane things into experiences makes the whole day feel much more
That's right.
worthwhile. I think we're really saying, give yourself a break. Think about whether the things you're doing are working for you and try and find the joy. Find the joy in the anxiety. Find the breaks in your schedule where you can actually have a laugh.
And also, you can catalogue aloud the bits where you felt terribly anxious and actually it went fine.
That's right. That's right.
You know, I was worried. You probably noticed, children, I was so worried about the
airport or
I was
about
worried we
thing-
weren't going to catch
Yeah,
the bus. I was
exactly.
worried the doctors was going to be closed when we got there. I was worried that, you know, when we got back from holiday, all the plants would be dead.
We
I
wouldn't
was
get
worried
the
and worried.
gluten-free snacks because
Yeah, I
that's
was
what you
worried.
need.
I was being so worried.
Yeah.
But, you know, it was absolutely fine. You know, and I'm feeling so relieved now. Phew.
I'm really enjoying
Gosh,
myself.
wow. You know.
Yeah, we nearly missed our flight back home from America last year, and then getting on the plane was the biggest win I'd ever had in my whole life. Doing something I'd completely banked on doing with absolutely no problem whatsoever became the biggest achievement I'd had all year. Like I was so pleased to be on that plane coming home because I was not expecting it, and the panic of it. And there was a point where we nearly had to walk down the motorway, and then we were then on the plane, and I was like, "How is this? This is the greatest moment of my life." And I said so. I said, "This is so great. This is so great." I think that's exactly it. Don't forget to notice the good bits, and don't forget to talk about them again. And we hope that helps you to have a more relaxed summer, and also consider if this is the moment to get a little bit of support to make things easier for you. And don't feel guilty if you're anxious. Everyone's anxious. We're working on it.
And also, if none of this comes naturally to you,
That's right.
which it may not. You may not be from that kind of family. You may never have heard anyone ever say that.
No.
You know, you may have had a huge wedding and the next morning no one even mentioned it.
That's
you know,
right.
you didn't go around telling stories or going back to things you've already finished, and it does strike you as not natural. Practice.
That's right.
Have a bash at it.
And also,
just have
you
a
know,
bash.
that's exactly why there are people like me who do phone calls with families.
Yeah.
So you're worried about how to make the summer feel more relaxing. You're very stressed. Give me a ring. Let's think about ways to make it more fun. Let's think of the days that your family would actually like together. Let's think about why bedtime is so tough at the moment when it's hot and how we could make it easier. You know, the idea is that you're right. There are a lot of people who, for example, they don't have a parent they can talk to about this. They haven't got a partner who is doing those sorts of things. They also came from a family where people were very low key. And this isn't about being not yourself.
No, exactly.
At all.
It's just
about working
give it a
about
whirl.
how to do it that works for your family.
All right,
Don't pretend.
we're gonna take a break now, but when we get back, we're gonna give you our favourite part of the programme, which is
a
called
good one.
Never Felt
It's a
So
good one.
Good. It's a special birthday one, so it's a really
No,
great
it's not
one.
a
No, it's not a
birthday
special
one.
one. No, we're gonna give you our favourite part of the programme, Never Felt So Good, which is to remind you that actually you rather like your children and they can be a good laugh, really. All right, what's our Never Felt So Good
It's a
this
really
week?
good one. I saw someone doing it on the internet and I thought, I don't know if it will work. I don't know if it's a good one. And it's absolutely phenomenal. I don't know. You need this one, you need a few things, but I'm hoping they're already at your house. So the first is you need a clothes drying airing rack, one of those metal stands you put your clothes on.
Right.
The second thing you need is magnetiles or magnetic things. And the third thing you need is either some sort of water gun or shoot, or even you can use these syringes from the Calpol, you know, that we all have now, which is very cool. So what you do is you put your drying area in the garden or on your balcony if it's a safe place to put it. You then attach all your magnetiles onto the area. You give it in a big bucket of water, and the water guns or squirters, and they have to squirt them off. Shoot at the magnetiles and squirt them off. They make a very satisfying noise when they fall on the floor. My children played with it for, I think, about an hour and 20 minutes.
Gosh.
I had to refill the bucket. They had about 7 times, and they took turns with who was shooting and who was putting the magnets back up. And I didn't ask them to do that. They sort of like fell into a really sweet collaborative sort of system. It was an absolute laugh. We got soaking, obviously, which was great because the weather in England is crazy at the moment. We had a really good laugh with it. I think the reason I liked it so much was it required a lot of different things: concentration, hand-eye coordination, getting really wet, which is a lovely thing when it's hot, the feeling that you couldn't be perfect at it straight away, but we all got a lot better in quite a short time, working out whether it was harder or easier to do it closer and further away. It was an absolute laugh, and it was completely different from anything we've done. We obviously don't play shooting games. My children don't have guns or Nerf guns, or they're too little, and I don't know if they would when they also have to work it out. But it was different from what we usually do. It was a bit sort of video gamey without actually having to use a screen or a video game. This feeling where you could count how many we got. There were so many opportunities to do it. it, but also that it was very, very engaging, which I think a lot of the things you see online take ages to set up and they're not at all engaging. And then, for goodness sake, I made a fish pond for my children out of clay and they hate it.
Yeah.
This one was very easy to, we always say that in your Instagram feed is full of people upcycling wardrobe.
Yeah, I always
and mine is people making Montessori toys for their children out from scratch.
Right.
And every time I try and make one, my children just cannot be bothered. It takes me 5 days to cut the loo rolls into a certain shape. And I'm like, they'll love this. They do it in 1 second. They're like, what is this? They just can't be bothered at all.
It's like when we made those volcanoes.
Yes. They like the volcanoes.
Not for long.
And also, they were so stinky because of the
they smelled horrible and they weren't much good. I mean, they were a limited edition.
It wasn't as pyrotechnic and pyroclastic as we were hoping for.
No.
I say that's the same with most of the things we try from online. When I see something, oh, that'll be a good one. It takes me days to get it sorted. I'm painting things red and green. I'm covered in paint. I'm always covered in paint. As we say, I used to say when I went to school, I came back from school covered in paint on days we didn't do painting.
I know. I don't know how she did that. She was that
kid.
It
is true.
She was
I was a messy puppy. I don't know if I am still, but whatever. And this one I would say is totally worth it.
Right.
It only takes once you've slapped your hair out into the garden or out into the street in front of your house. My big feeling is it takes about 4 minutes to set up, and it kept my kids busy for an hour. I would say that is a big win for the summer, particularly because it kept them cool.
I absolutely
and it was a good
love
laugh. It was a laugh. I really recommend it. I've got
Fantastic.
photos. I'll put them up.
Fantastic. And if you haven't got the Magna Tiles or the Aera, just get your Calpol squirters, give them a wash and just squirt it.
Squirt each other, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't think
just
it has
cut out the middleman. That's
it's like cut out the middleman, get everyone all sprayed and have a lovely summer. We are, over the summer, we're doing a very special thing and I'm really excited about it. We are interviewing our favourite mums and mum and parenting experts over the summer. So we're really excited that there's going to be back-to-back guest episodes over the summer because they're our favourites. We love talking to people about their children, their anxiety, and also their whatever they are passionate about. So we've got some really amazing guests coming up and we are really excited to have them. So we're sure that you'll love those too.
So don't miss the Help My Child's Anxious pod in the future. And just how do you get in touch with us if you want to?
You have to get us on our Instagram, Help My Child's Anxious pod, or helpmychildsanxious@gmail.com.
Lots of love. Bye.
Bye.